Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to theCUBE's live coverage of Fal.Con 2025 here at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight, alongside my co-host and analyst, Dave Vellante. I would like to welcome back to theCUBE, Elia Zaitsev. He is the Chief Technology Officer at CrowdStrike. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, so we're all fresh from the main stage where Michael Satonis was up there talking about how AI is really rewriting the rules of cybersecurity, and he asked a question, can we as defenders adapt faster than our adversaries? Elia, what's your answer to that?
I think absolutely, we have no choice, we have to, right? We have to get there, and it's something that we've been building our platform towards for several years now. And one of the big announcements that George talked about and Mike talked about, a little bit of a tease, kind of teeing me up for my keynote tomorrow, is this big investment we made in the enterprise graph, which is this system that we built that combines everything we've done on the platform to date so far, simplifies it, abstracts it, normalizes it all together, and it has a lot of benefits for our end users, even for our developers, as they look to harness the power of all the data we collect. One of the other major benefits that it brings is the interface it creates is actually tailor-built for AI and agentic systems. One of the things that's we have to think about a little bit different from a mindset perspective when we're building technologies and platforms with AI, is we need to think about the slope of the accelerating slope, right, of the innovation curve there. The technology that we have today, the intelligence, even like 12 months ago, it's orders of magnitude more powerful, and that's increasing. So if you take a traditional product development approach where you sit down, you think about, okay, what are the pain points our customers have today? What can our technology solve today? Let's go build out those use cases. Let's spend 3, 6, 12 months delivering that. If you take that approach, by the time you ship your capabilities, the intelligence systems that you have now at your disposal, the use cases, the problems you can solve, you're already behind. And the adversary isn't waiting that long. So by building this deep investment in our platform and our architecture, we also want to take a different mindset, which is start building a platform now, right? And we've successfully delivered that. That allows us to integrate and bring in any black box intelligence system, any agentic capability that we don't even know exists today, but we could slot in at any point in time, so that when the latest and greatest intelligence system is available, we don't have to wait 12 more months to integrate into our platform. Our platform is designed from the ground up to be agentically operated and managed. So I'm really excited about that.
Can you add some color technically on the enterprise graph? Because graph databases have been around for a long time. They're obviously ascending now with AI. The challenge with graph has always been, they're so expressive, but to actually query them, you got to go back 15 years, and it's sort of the dark ages. And now we're seeing a lot more facile ways to interact with graph databases, but in security, it's always been a great use case. And I want to tie it in to agentic workflows. So when you think about things like AgentWorks, building your own agents, and you think about the secret sauce around your graph database, how should we think about those workflows? Like in enterprise use cases, I think about paving the cow path, I call it. We don't want to just apply intelligence to a workflow that could be improved. Is there an analogy like that in security, where you've got these fossilized workflows, but with agentic, you could actually reform those workflows, do it much more efficiently, much more quickly? Is there, so a two-part question is, can you double click on the secret sauce of your graph, and what about that workflow, reformatting question?
So I'm going to let you all in on a little bit of a secret. The enterprise graph is not really a graph, and it's not really a database. It's actually a unification of all the other graph and non-graph systems that we've been building and investing in for many years. And you're right, graphs are really good at certain types of problems, like understanding relationships and traversing those relationships and seeing how they build out over deeper and deeper levels. But even we have multiple graph systems already in our platform. For example, threat graph and asset graph. Why do we have two different graph systems? Well, they're built to solve different sorts of use cases, and they have different performance requirements and optimizations built in. And by the way, a graph system isn't the right database for every single problem out there. That's why we have like next-gen SIEM built on top of LogScale. We've got relational databases, we've got time series systems that are keeping track of state, et cetera, et cetera. The point here is that depending on the problem you want to solve, a different database system, a different data layer will be more optimized to some of those use cases, but not optimized to some of them. So we've built multiple systems here so that we don't have to deal with where they're unoptimized. We can pick the right one when it's the best system suited for the job. So that's kind of the historical architecture. What's happened now though is we have all these different systems. They have different nuances, different query language, different data models, and even just understanding as a human, and definitely as an agentic system, if I'm trying to solve this complex question that may require me to use multiple data systems, graph and non-graph alike, which one do I pick? Sometimes two different systems will even have the same piece of data, but depending on how you're trying to interact with it, one is going to be better suited to solving your complex question than the other one. So how do we deal with this all, right? It's become a pretty significant mental burden on the humans, and the AI agents, they don't out of the box know all these different nuances. They're not trained necessarily in all these different query languages, et cetera. So what do we do? And that's where the enterprise graph comes in. So the enterprise graph is actually this abstraction layer that sits on top of all these systems, and it allows a human or an agentic system to ask pretty much in plain English language, hey, answer this question that involves information about cloud and identity and endpoint and vulnerabilities. I'm not asking it to say, go to this module, go to that module, go to this graph database. I'm just telling it what I want it to do. And the agentic system, through this abstraction layer, it'll ask that question, and then this magic layer, this enterprise graph layer, will figure out, based on the question you're asking me, I'm going to pick these systems. These are the optimized best systems to answer that request, sometimes more than one, and then it'll do the translation for you in that kind of plain, simple English language to all the nuances and details and the underlying query syntaxes of all those systems. And that gets hidden away from the user, but it also gets hidden away from the agent. So the agent is now able to basically reason in natural language, which it's trained to do out of the box. We don't have to spend any additional time now teaching it all the nuances of our platform and which database does what and how to write the queries. It's just going to reason and execute those requests, and the enterprise graph will take care of making sure it's being done the most efficiently and the most performative manner possible. It also means that as we bring in new data and connect new systems into the platform, we don't have to now waste precious months to retrain or update these systems. It's just able to take advantage of this all out of the box because of that abstraction. So going back to your question now on the workflow side.
So can I just follow up on that?
Sure.
So that says to me that abstraction layer is not a graph, you call it a graph, but it's actually a map.
It's like a graph of graphs.
It's a graph of graphs, okay. I think of it as a map. Is that the wrong way to think of it?
I think that's a good analogy. It's a map of your enterprise.
And it's a multi-dimensional app. It's not like a two-dimensional app, like a map like customer and location. It's maybe a 4D map, or
it's got time, it's got location, it's got different
identity,
security domains, exactly, identity, data, users.
And it's able to, I think at databases you store data in strings that databases understand, but this abstraction puts things in the concept of things that humans.
The technical term we use is semantic objects, right? Like we're not talking about a vendor-specific or a product-specific field name, which we have to then teach and translate the AI systems. We're asking it to think in semantic concepts like a machine, a user, an identity.
Words.
What was that?
Words, a semantic
words,
concept.
exactly. And large language model,
places.
language is in the name. They're really good at words.
Yeah.
So people, places, things, activities that humans can understand. Okay, and then the other follow-up is that suggests you have all this data in different systems. You've had to harmonize that data in order to be able to serve it up so that agents can act confidently.
Correct.
Okay. So that's
you can take an AI system and stick it against these traditional independent databases and ask it to do some things, and it'll sometimes get it right and it'll fail a lot and it'll make mistakes. And when you swap out the same data, right, same capabilities, but you give it this new interface that's designed out of the box to work with these agentic systems, the same requests, the efficacy rates just skyrocket up. It just works much more often and gives you the data you expect. And to your original question, now we don't actually think about how would we construct the workflow today. We don't worry about that anymore. We tell the agents this is what I want to accomplish, go use the enterprise graph, you figure out the best way to do that for me. I'm just telling you the outcome that I'm looking for, and it can go deliver and execute that
So
for
you have, I'm drawing a block diagram in my head, and I'm seeing this harmonization layer, or call
You
it
need a whiteboard next
call
time.
it, I
next
know,
year.
right, exactly. But I call it a system of intelligence. That's a term that George Gilbert and I have been using, that can interpret context from metrics and dimensions and the business and the activities, and then serve up the agents in the agent control framework that's governed. Is that a reasonable representation of what you guys have built? Is that
Absolutely,
your
and that's
IP?
why, like the other side of this coin, enterprise graph was probably, in my opinion, the biggest thing where we've announced. The other big one that you already touched on is AgentWorks, right? Letting our customers and our partners come and develop their own agents. And the reason this works, and it works so effectively and doesn't require expert IT teams and programmers, is because one, it's built on top of this enterprise graph foundation. So we can in fact just develop these new agents with natural language. Now we're saying you don't have to be a developer anymore to create and customize systems on this platform and integrate with third parties. You just have to be able to, I was going to say type out written language, but let's be honest, there's really good speech-to-text systems too, so you could be functionally illiterate now and still create agentic systems, tell them what you want to do. And again, it can tap into the enterprise graph, so it's just going to know how to follow those instructions without you needing to be an expert in the platform. And we've got that enterprise-grade security and governance, identity and data protection built into it, so you can build with confidence and start to create workflows customized to your organization that we frankly never even dreamed of. But because you're powering it with the enterprise graph, it's going to work at very high efficacy rates without having to have the customer bring in teams of data scientists to make sure it works after painstaking fine-tuning and iteration.
So when George, on his keynote yesterday, when he announced AgentWorks, I was like, well, why should I use George's agent builder versus something from some other company, AWS or Google? And then he immediately answered that. And so he was basically data. So I had a conversation last night with my friends ChatGPT and Claude and Grok, saying what are the dimensions, imagine you're CrowdStrike and you've got this agent builder capability. What are the dimensions and the salient aspects of CrowdStrike's agent builder relative to generic agent builders? And it came up with 5: data quality, security context, customization, integration, and governance. And I said, well, show me a graph of where, in theory, CrowdStrike will do better. And basically, it did better in all of those with the exception of customization. But data quality, security context, integration, and governance, I'm not sure about governance, but the other ones I kind of buy in the context of security. Is that a reasonable way to think about your advantage?
I think so, and actually let me touch on customization since I guess.
That was a parody.
ChatGPT is not
that was a parody.
Yeah.
Well, that was not just ChatGPT, it was a Perplexity, ChatGPT, Claude, and Grok, and they all kind of sort of agreed, and then I put in my own analyst interpretation.
There's some truth to that statement, right? I mean, you build on our platform because it has all those other advantages, because it's simple and secure and all the data's there, but we also recognize that there's going to be inevitably scenarios where you want to use the power of our platform and our data, but with other types of workflows, other agents, from other companies. We've announced a lot of partnerships and we're working closely with companies like NVIDIA and Salesforce. They have their own Agentforce capabilities. So sometimes you're going to want to do other things outside of our platform, but you bring your own intelligence, so to speak, but you still want to leverage data and functionality from our systems. So one of the things that I'm going to be talking about tomorrow in my keynote, and Mike spoke about a little bit as well, is this agent gateway concept where you can also bring your own intelligence hosted somewhere else and use that to interact with enterprise graph directly, so that because of the investments we've made there, in the same way that it makes our own internal agentic systems operate much more simply and with higher efficacy and speedier outcomes, you'll get those same benefits if you bring your own external intelligence system. There might be some additional complexities and governance and other challenges you have to deal with, but we're giving you that flexibility to customize. You still get the power of all the native agentic innovations we built into the platform, but you could also take the intelligence somewhere else if you've got your own custom model that you've been developing as an enterprise and you want to tap into our platform.
So you would say you have advantages in the customization as well as those other areas that I...
We have advantages in both ends, and we give you choice at the end of the day. We're giving choice to the customers.
If you want to use somebody else's agents, go for it, is what you're saying.
Maybe there's very special data sets or systems locally in your enterprise that you can or won't bring up to the CrowdStrike cloud. That's a great use case of where you want to operate that intelligence locally, but you still want to be able to leverage the power of the data and the integrations we've built in our platform.
Salesforce is a good example.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah. So Elia, you spend a lot of time talking to board members and C-suiters about their AI transformation and their technology concerns, what keeps them up at night. What are you hearing most from them, and then how do you respond?
I thought you were going to start by saying I spend a lot of time talking, and that was it, but
well,
yes.
We can hear it in your voice, and it's been
yeah, thank you. I think the number one concern I'm hearing is, especially from the CISOs that are responsible for securing all these new innovations, they don't want to be blocking digital transformation, AI adoption. It's a board level mandate to adopt these technologies and accelerate and innovate. So the CISO doesn't want to stop that innovation, but they're also a little bit terrified that there's like 700 million people now using ChatGPT, and they want the peace of mind and governance to know that data isn't leaving the front door, right? Developers aren't just uploading sensitive keys and source code up to the cloud. So there's this, when people are talking to me about AI and security, I have to first clarify, well, which element of it? There's really two. There's using AI to enhance security, which is kind of what we just talked about, right? Bringing these agentic systems to revolutionize our operations. But then there's also this other coin of how do we secure these AI systems that enterprises are rushing to adopt, that they have to adopt. So that's this other half of the coin. I can't talk about all the announcements we've got there. They're embargoed, I think, until tomorrow, but there's some things we're doing on the data and the identity side, but that's a key topic of conversation. How can we enable that digital transformation safely and not hinder the adoption of AI at the workforce level, at the enterprise level?
Excellent.
So we saw some good demos today. We saw some Charlotte demos. The Pangea demo really resonated. I take it you were involved in some of those acquisitions. You usually take a little look,
did a thing or two,
kick the tires. Can you put both the Onum and Pangea, can you put them in context? What does that mean, generally, but specifically for the SOC analyst experience?
Yeah, so let's maybe start with Onum. We announced that a little bit earlier, that the transaction's close, so we're really excited now to be integrating that into the platform. Onum is all about streamlining and making it easier for SOC teams and analysts to get the data into the platform in the first place. So very high performance, very efficient filtering and transformation at the edge, which by the way has some pretty exciting performance and cost savings implications for our customers. They can now intelligently filter out the non-relevant data and actually make more room from a computation and from a budget perspective to bring in the valuable data that maybe they can't afford to bring in right now. It also allows us to start to shift some of that detection and analytical capability out at the edge so it occurs faster. So by the time the data has entered our platform, we've already done some pre-analysis and already identified that there's something anomalous going on in that data stream, so we could take faster action with it once it's in the platform through that process.
Okay.
So that's a lot of what Onum is about. Let's talk about Pangea for a second. So really this is about filling in for us as a company. I'd say maybe the crucial last missing piece of the puzzle for this vision of AIDR, right? Artificial intelligence detection and response. So when you think about securing agentic systems now, which by the way I think is going to be an incredibly important topic over the next year or two, we're kind of already getting to the place where for every single human you have in your enterprise, you've got an agent supporting them. In the very not too distant future, you're going to have more agents than humans operating inside these enterprises. And George talked about this in his keynote. In many ways, all but one that I'll get to in a second, I promise, securing an agent is actually just like securing a human. They look the same. That's kind of by design. They're replacing or augmenting humans doing previously human tasks. So they have an identity. They have access to certain data, maybe read only, maybe read write. They can take action, they can reason. So the same techniques and capabilities we've used to secure humans at the identity level, at the data level, at the configuration, at the infrastructure level, you need all of that with agents. And that's not too big of a lift because it looks very similar as the human model, but there is one very crucial, novel thing that agents bring to the table, which is this handling of unstructured data, prompts, right? Prompts are a new attack surface. We talked about it as being almost the new malware. right? You can do things like prompt injection attacks and jailbreaking. So it's not enough to just log and record all these instructions and output coming in and out of these agents. You have to be able to actually analyze them, and because they're unstructured, that can be a challenge. So Pangea brings a lot of things to the table for us, but the one that really that I'm focused on is this last missing piece of the puzzle to bring into our overall platform. So now we can comprehensively secure, analyze, detect, and prevent every aspect of an agent's lifecycle.
Excellent. Well, Elia Zaitsev, thank you so much for coming on theCUBE. A really great conversation.
Thank you for having me, and maybe we'll get that whiteboard for next
All
year.
right, yeah,
We need
let's
it.
do it.
We need it. I'm Rebecca Knight for Dave Vellante. Stay tuned for more of theCUBE's live coverage of Fal.Con 2025. You're watching theCUBE, the leader in enterprise tech news and analysis.